Welcome to our conversation today. My name is Kate Ryan and I'm a partner at IBB Law and I deal with family law. I'm here today with Sarah Chaplin-Lee, who is a coach, and we're going to talk about all things to do with coaching and how important it is for clients that are going through a traumatic experience such as a family breakdown or a separation. As a family lawyer, I often see clients struggling with their future decisions, really struggling to co-parent with the other person with regards to the arrangements for their children, and not able to focus on their future or make any decisions about things such as where they're going to live, how they're going to fund their outgoings, all these decisions that can be overwhelming for people going through a breakdown of a relationship. I often refer clients to other trusted advisors, whether it's with regards to their financial planning or tax planning, and it's equally as important to be able to refer clients on to people that can also care and look after their mental and emotional well-being. This is why I've been working with Sarah to ensure that the client's journey through a very difficult process not only deals with the practical and legal implications, but also their emotional and mental well-being as well. So I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who can talk about her background.
Thank you so much, Kate. It's a real pleasure to be here. A little bit about me. I used to work in professional services before changing to operate as a management consultant looking after entrepreneurs and small to medium-sized businesses. And about 7 years ago, I took the decision to retrain as a coach and took a fair amount of time over that, training with an excellent provider who provided great rigour to the programme. And I was able to really focus on models which are rooted in psychotherapeutic backgrounds, and there's a lot of data around neuroscience and resilience and well-being as part of that. And I attend to that as part of my ongoing commitment to continuous professional development as well. So I'm passionate about it, and it informs part of my whole practice.
So would you be able to tell us a little bit about what coaching actually is?
Sure. Coaching is a talking discipline, so it feels very much like this, a very natural conversation, but it's quite different in how it's experienced by the client. So my job and my training is to really listen and pay attention to what I'm hearing and what I'm noticing. And I bring impartiality because I come from outside the client's system. So I carry no agenda about them. I've got absolutely no judgment about them whatsoever. I carry the aspiration that they're going to be able to liberate maybe unhelpful thinking patterns or stuck ways of behaving, and ultimately help them to open their minds, expand their awareness to what's possible for them, and then get quite practical about how are they going to make that happen for themselves in their lives in a way that's authentic for them.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about people being stuck and movement and change that is often part of their progress. I experience a lot of my clients being really stuck and not able to make a decision about moving forward, which is really, really important for them. How might you work with people that are in a position where they can't move forward?
So stuckness and being stuck is a really prevalent theme for me and for most of my colleagues, I would suspect. And I think it might help to just talk a little bit about the difference between change and transition, because and it also speaks to what you and I are doing in partnership with IBB, which is that the change is the event, the thing that happens to us often. So that's where your legal expertise and experience comes in, because you attend to the facts of the matter, getting the process done. The transition piece is our reaction to it, our emotional and psychological response to the change, and our ability to navigate it and emerge through it the other side, having made sense of it for ourselves. Often, if you attend only to the change part, you can get stuck because you're stuck in the trauma, you're stuck in the past, quite often around the stuff that's happened. When I work with clients, especially clients who are going through this sort of process, we'll be looking at the transitional domain, the elements of the psychological and the emotional, the impact on them, to enable them to make meaning of what's happened and then to reframe it so they can then decide what they want for themselves, how they want to move forward, and what that's going to mean for them for the rest of their lives. So that's how it sort of fits together.
And that really resonates with me as a family lawyer. I'm often talking to my clients about some of those things, and it would be really helpful if you could explain what types of things you talk to your clients about.
Certainly. When I think about the sort of topics that I might work with clients of yours around and in this space, there's really three that come to mind. I think the primary one is around the relationship with children and what happens to that after the divorce has taken place. Another aspect of that is around blended families, which is such a big thing these days. And I think the third one for me is around identity and self-worth, and quite often those things suffer as a consequence of both the process itself and the breakdown of the marriage. So I say there's a lot of things that clients bring, but I'd say those are probably the top three for me.
Could you perhaps bring to life a situation where you've talked through these sorts of issues with a client?
Yes, Kate. I think live examples are really helpful for people watching who don't really understand how this works in practice. So I'm working with a gentleman at the moment whose identity as a father has been really challenged by the experience of going through a relatively acrimonious divorce. Having been a very hands-on dad, very present in his children's lives and really invested and fully present with them, he now finds himself struggling at a distance because the separation has created a physical separation as well as an emotional separation. So his role and his identity as a father feels very challenged. So our work together has been trying to separate his pattern of reactivity, which has been contaminated by the behaviours of his ex, into focusing on what really matters to him, which is the connection that he has with his children and how to give them what they need, because they too are going through their own transition. They've gone from what they thought was a loving, secure family home into a split parenting environment, which has been very difficult for everybody. So we've worked at all those different levels with him to allow him to understand who he is now, that he's still a great dad, and how he wants to then choose to show up free from the interference that comes from the behaviours from his ex, which were part of the reasons why they couldn't live together anymore anyway. So there's a real sense of making meaning of the terrain and then really focusing on what matters and doing stuff around that.
And another thing that you said, which again I have great experience of dealing with in terms of clients not being able to who lose their identity and don't know where they fit in the world anymore because of what's happened. Are you able to give us an example of someone that you've worked with who's lost their identity or is struggling with their identity?
Yes, I can, in fact. I've been working with a lady who's on two levels, because she's found that as a consequence of going through the process, her well-being has suffered, and alongside that, her sense of who she is now that she's emerged, having given up her job to raise the children. She's back in a world which she doesn't recognise because she's been 20 years out of it. So really, when somebody arrives with me in my coaching space who's in quite a fraught, stressed state, we start with the well-being of the person, because you can't do any work until somebody's in a present state to be able to listen and process and make meaning for themselves. So we start there. There's lots of techniques and practices to give the client what they need to feel effective and capable again, so exercising their own control. And then after that, we then work quite practically to strip down to where their identity was rooted before, what their skills and competencies and strengths look like. And then we really start to get quite active and future focused about what do you want for yourself, what does it mean for you, how does it align with your values, where do you see yourself in a couple of years? And we start getting quite tactical about it.
There's obviously so much we could talk about with regards to coaching and the benefits for clients, and we can't do that today, unfortunately. But I'm so passionate about making sure my clients are looked after through this process, both on the practical and legal side, but also on the emotional and well-being side. It's reaffirmed today, our conversation, that just how important their journey is, and it's been really great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate.